I was 15 when I learned the dead don't hate you. They don't rage. They don't hunt out of anger. They don't even remember who you are. They just move, slow, endless, patient. The adults told us that was mercy, that the dead weren't cruel anymore. I didn't believe them. Anything that keeps walking after the world ends has already chosen cruelty. My name is Benny Imura, and this is how I learned the rules of the rot. The first rule was simple: never let them touch you. Not a scratch, not a bite, not even bare skin brushing dead skin. One mistake and you don't die. You become a problem someone else has to solve. The second rule was harder: don't hesitate. I failed that one almost immediately. The road stretched white and empty ahead of us, snow packed down by years of wind and rotter footsteps. My brother Tom walked 10 paces ahead, his blade resting easy in his hand, like it was part of his arm. He had the calm of someone who'd already accepted how the world worked. I still carried the weight of how it used to. We'd passed houses swallowed by ice, doors hanging open, windows dark like empty eye sockets. Every place looked abandoned, but nothing ever truly was. The dead had a way of hiding in plain sight. Tom slowed and raised his fist. I froze. There was a man ahead, or what used to be one. He stood in the middle of the road, head tilted, mouth slightly open. His skin was gray, stretched thin, lips cracked black with dried blood. Snow had collected on his shoulders like he'd been standing there for a long time. He didn't move. I whispered, "Is he dead?" Tom said quietly. "But not finished." The rider swayed, just barely, like the wind was deciding whether he deserved to fall. My heart started pounding. This was it, my first real one, not a training dummy, not a tied-down corpse. This was the test Tom had been warning me about for months. He handed me the blade. It was heavier than I expected. "Base of the skull," he said. "Straight in. Don't saw. Don't pull back halfway." The rider turned his head toward us, and for a split second, just a poisonous, stupid second, I saw a man. Not a monster. His eyes were cloudy, but not empty. His mouth worked like he was trying to remember how words felt. My hands started shaking. Tom's voice hardened. "Benny, now." I stepped forward. The rotter lunged. Not fast, not dramatic, just enough. I screamed and swung wild, the blade scraping bone instead of piercing it. The sound was wrong. Wet, hollow. The rotter fell into me. I felt his breath on my face. Cold, rotten, wrong. Tom was there instantly. His blade flashed once, clean and perfect. The rider dropped, twitching once before going still. Silence flooded back in. I stumbled away and threw up into the snow. Tom didn't yell. That somehow felt worse. "You hesitated," he said. "That hesitation almost killed you." I wiped my mouth, my throat burning. "He looked human," Tom finished. "That's the trap. That's how they win." I stared at the body. Snow already settling on it again, like the world was eager to forget. That night we camped inside a burned-out gas station. Tom cleaned the blade while I sat with my knees pulled to my chest, listening to the wind claw at the walls. "Do you ever get used to it?" I asked. Tom paused. "If you do, you're already dead." I didn't sleep much. The next day we reached the outskirts of town. Fences went up first, then watchtowers. Human voices carried through the cold air, sharp and suspicious. Civilization, what was left of it, always sounded afraid. The guards let us in after checking our blood and our weapons. Inside, people moved quickly, eyes down, hands close to knives or guns. Kids my age trained with blades instead of books. Laughter felt rare, like an illegal activity. This was the world after the end. Pockets of safety surrounded by oceans of rot. Tom took me to the market square where hunters traded rotter parts for food and ammo. Heads hung from hooks, jaws wired open to prove the kill. It made my stomach twist. "That's proof," Tom said. "In this world, proof matters." A man nearby laughed while counting teeth. Another argued over whether a kill was fresh enough. Nobody looked at the faces. I wondered how many of those rotters had hesitated once too. That night I dreamed of the man in the road. In the dream he spoke. Not words, just a feeling, like apology, like regret. I woke up shaking. Tom was already awake, staring at the door. "You're still thinking like it's the old world," he said without turning. "That'll get you killed." "What if the dead remember?" I asked. "Then they remember dying," he replied, "and nothing else." We left town before sunrise. As we walked back into the white emptiness, I understood something no one had said out loud. The rotters weren't the end of the world. They were what came after the end, what was left when rules collapsed, when mercy became a liability, when survival demanded you cut away parts of yourself just to keep breathing. I tightened my grip on the blade. I didn't hesitate again that day, and that scared me more than the dead ever could. By the third day outside the fence, the world stopped pretending to be empty. You don't notice it all at once. It creeps in slowly the way the silence changes, the way the wind carries something that isn't just cold. Rotters don't announce themselves. They leak into the world like a sickness. Tom walked ahead of me again, always ahead. That was how it worked. He cleared the path. I followed, watched, learned, wound. I hated that part most. The snow thinned as we moved south, turning gray, slushy, stained with old footprints. Rotter trails. Human too. Sometimes it was hard to tell the difference anymore. "Eyes up," Tom said. "This stretch is bad." That was all the warning I got. The first one came out of a ditch on the right. A woman, or what used to be one, dragging one leg behind her. Arms stiff, jaw hanging at an angle that hurt to look at. Her clothes were torn, frozen into her skin. I felt the fear spike again. But this time something else rose with it. Focus. I stepped forward before Tom could stop me. Base of the skull, straight in. The blade slid clean. The body dropped. No hesitation, no scream. Tom glanced back at me, just once. He didn't smile, but his nod meant more than praise ever could. We didn't stop. By noon, we counted 7 more. They came in 1s and 2s, never rushing, never stopping, just following whatever thin thread of instinct kept them moving. That was when we heard the bell. It was faint at first, a hollow clanging sound carried by the wind, not metal on metal, metal on bone. Tom cursed under his breath. "Bellman," he said. I had heard the stories. Everyone had. A rotter with a cowbell chained around its neck, set loose to draw others in. Some people did it to clear areas. Some did it because cruelty felt easier than mercy. Either way, the sound meant one thing: a herd. We moved uphill fast, boots slipping on ice. The bell grew louder, joined by another sound, the wet shuffle of dozens of feet dragging through snow. My lungs burned, my thoughts scattered. Tom grabbed my collar and yanked me down behind a fallen tree. "Don't run," he whispered. "Running wakes them." Too late. They were already waking. The first heads appeared between the trees, then shoulders, then bodies. So many bodies. Men, women, kids. Some frozen stiff, others jerking forward in sudden bursts of speed. The bellman came last. He was big, broad. The bell cracked and dented against his chest, ringing with every step. His eyes were gone, just dark pits filled with snow. The herd shifted toward us. I could feel them sensing something. Heat, breath, life. Tom leaned close. "When I say move, you move. Don't think." My heart hammered so loud I was sure they could hear it. The bell rang again. Now, we ran. Branches tore at my face. Ice slid under my boots. Somewhere behind us, the herd surged, their moans overlapping into something almost rhythmic. One fell, another trampled it. They didn't stop. A rotter lunged from the side. I swung without looking, felt resistance, then nothing. I didn't even turn back to see if it stayed down. We burst out of the trees onto an open road. Bad choice. The herd spilled out behind us, spreading wide, cutting off escape routes like water finding cracks. Tom shoved me toward an abandoned truck. Up now. We climbed as hands scraped the metal below. Fingers snapped. Teeth clacked. One rotter pulled itself halfway up. Its face was inches from mine. I smelled decay and old blood and something sweet underneath it all. I didn't hesitate. The blade went in. The body fell. The herd gathered below, reaching, ringing, moaning, and then gunfire. Sharp, controlled, close. Riders dropped in chunks, skulls snapping back, bodies collapsing into the snow. The herd scattered, confused, some turning on each other. I turned toward the sound. 3 figures stood on the ridge, masks, coats stitched with armor, weapons clean and precise. Hunters, but not like Tom. They moved like soldiers. One of them lowered her rifle and looked straight at me. Even from a distance, I could feel it. Cold, sharp, assessing. "Stay where you are," she called. Her voice was calm. Too calm. Tom stepped forward. "We're clear. Passing through." She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she smiled. And that was when I knew whatever lesson I thought I'd learned about the dead. I was still unprepared for the living. They didn't lower their weapons. That was the first thing I noticed. Not even a fraction. The woman who spoke stepped closer, boots crunching softly in the snow. Her rifle stayed trained on Tom's chest, steady as stone. The other 2 spread out without a word, flanking us like this was routine, like we were already classified, already measured. "Passing through where?" she asked. Tom didn't answer right away. That pause was everything. I felt it stretch, heavy and wrong. Tom was fast with riders, calm, precise. But with people like this, organized, armed, confident, he slowed down. "South," he finally said. "No trouble." The woman tilted her head, studying me now. I felt exposed in a way riders never made me feel. They wanted flesh. She wanted information. "Name?" she asked. Tom's jaw tightened. "Tom." She looked at me. "Benny," I said before he could stop me. Her eyes flicked back to Tom. Something unreadable passed between them. Hunter? She asked him. Yes. Her gaze sharpened. Certified? Tom nodded. That word certified settled into my stomach like a stone. I'd heard it whispered back inside the fence. Hunters who worked under contracts, bounties, codes, not just killing rotters, but tracking people too. The woman finally lowered her rifle an inch. I'm Nix, she said. This is Caleb and Roe. The two men didn't acknowledge us. Bellman heard? She asked. Tom nodded. Cleared enough to pass. Nix smiled again. Still wrong, still sharp. You're lucky, she said. Most people don't make it when that bell rings. I didn't see anything. My hands were still shaking, though I hated that she could probably see it. Where are you headed? She asked. Still south, Tom said. We don't linger. Funny, she said. Neither do we. She turned, motioned with 2 fingers. We're moving the same direction, she said. Roads safer in numbers. Tom stiffened. I knew that posture now. He didn't like this. Not one bit. We work alone, he said. Nix looked at me again. Your boy doesn't, she said. Not yet. That stung more than I expected. Before Tom could respond, a sound rolled across the hills. Low, layered, wrong. The herd wasn't done, not the same one. Another, further out. Multiple bells this time, faint but multiplying. Rose swore softly. We stirred too much, Nick said. They'll converge. Her eyes locked with Tom's. Alone or together, she said. Your choice. Tom looked at me. That was new, really looked. Not like a trainee, not like a burden, like a variable. Together, he said finally, for now. Nix's smile returned, satisfied. We moved fast. The terrain dipped into an old suburban stretch, half-buried houses, collapsed roofs, cars frozen mid-escape. Snow filled everything, softening edges, but not hiding the rot. We took positions inside a 2-story shell of a house, windows blown out, stairs collapsed. Quiet kills, Nix said. Save ammo. Rotters began filtering in from the streets. Singles at first, then clusters. Drawn by sound, by warmth, by us. Caleb moved like a machine. Efficient. Brutal. No wasted motion. Roe favored a hammer. Up close. Personal. I stayed near Tom. A rotter lunged through a doorway. I froze for half a second, too long. Tom shoved me aside and dropped it with a single thrust. Again, he snapped. You hesitate again, you die. I nodded, ashamed. Then another came. And another. This time I didn't freeze. Blade in, twist, pull free. The rotter dropped. Something inside me shifted, not pride. Not excitement. Acceptance. After it was over, bodies littered the street like discarded clothes. The bells had gone silent, for now. Nix wiped her blade and looked at Tom. You train him yourself? Yes. She studied me one last time. He'll live, she said. If he survives people. That night, we camped together, despite Tom's protests. Fire low. No talking unless necessary. I lay awake listening to wind scrape snow across broken asphalt. That's when I heard it. Whispered voices, not rotters, human. I shifted slightly, heart pounding. Nix and Caleb stood apart from the fire, speaking low. Kid's worth something, Caleb said. Not yet, Nix replied, but soon. My blood went cold. They weren't talking about rotters. They were talking about me, and Tom was asleep. I didn't sleep after that. I lay there staring at the fractured ceiling, listening to the wind drag dead snow across broken glass, replaying Nix's words over and over in my head. Worth something? Soon. People didn't talk like that unless they were deciding whether you were prey. I shifted just enough to see Tom across the room. His back was to the fire, his face half lit, half swallowed by shadow. He slept light, always had. One hand rested near his blade. Good. I needed him sharp. Morning came gray and bitter. The fire died down to embers, and the cold crawled back into my bones like a living thing. Nix was already up, checking gear. Caleb and Roe moved silently, methodical, like the world still ran on schedules. Tom caught my eye. I shook my head once. Something's wrong, he didn't ask, just nodded. We moved out shortly after dawn. The road narrowed into a long stretch of frozen highway, lined with cars' doors open, luggage spilled, skeletons locked into their final decisions. Snow drifted over everything, smoothing panic into stillness. Too still. Nix raised a fist. We stopped. She crouched, brushing snow aside to reveal tracks. Human. Fresh. Ahead of us, she said. 3, maybe 4. Tom frowned. Scavengers? Nix didn't answer. We followed the trail into a rest stop half buried by snow. The building sagged, windows black, doors ripped open long ago. I felt it then. That pressure in my chest, the sense that something bad had already decided to happen. We found them inside, a family. Man, woman, 2 kids, huddled behind an overturned vending machine, eyes wide with terror, hands shaking as they raised them. Please, the man said, we don't have much. Nix didn't lower her weapon. Neither did Caleb. Tom stepped forward. We're just passing through, the woman cried quietly. One of the kids clung to her coat, face buried. I looked at Tom, then at Nix. Then I understood. This wasn't a rescue. This was an evaluation. Nix circled them slowly, calm, clinical, like a butcher deciding where to cut. Supplies? She asked. The man nodded frantically. Food, water, we'll share. Nix smiled, and then she shot him. The sound cracked through the building like thunder. The woman screamed. The kids froze too shocked to even cry. I couldn't breathe. My body locked up, mind screaming, no, 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 no. Tom moved. His blade flashed, knocking Nix's rifle aside before she could fire again. What the hell are you doing? He shouted. Caleb raised his gun. Roe stepped forward. Everything exploded into chaos. Rotters heard the gunshot. Moans rose from outside. Nix shoved Tom back hard. They won't survive, she snapped. This world doesn't have room for dead weight. They're kids, Tom said. So is he, she replied, pointing at me. And he'll learn. Something broke in me then. Not fear, not shock. Rage. I moved without thinking. I grabbed the woman and kids, dragging them toward the back exit as rotters began smashing through windows. Glass shattered. Hands reached in. Tom fought Caleb. Steel on steel. Fast. Brutal. Nix turned toward me. Her eyes met mine. Cold. Calculating. She raised her gun. I threw a knife. It hit her shoulder, knocking her aim wide. The shot tore into the ceiling instead. Tom finished it then. One clean strike. Nix fell. The rotters flooded in. There was no time to think. We ran. Out into the snow, screams swallowed by wind and moans. The family scattered, panic breaking them apart. I grabbed one of the kids, too small to run fast enough, and hauled him forward. Behind us, gunfire died. Then so did the screaming. We didn't stop until our lungs burned and our legs gave out. When we finally collapsed behind a ridge, Tom leaned over, hands on his knees, breathing hard. "That," he said between breaths, "is why we don't trust hunters." I nodded. My hands were shaking again. Not from fear, from knowing how close I'd been to becoming like them. We didn't go back for the bodies. We didn't look back at the smoke rising in the distance. By nightfall, the world felt different, heavier, meaner. The rules I thought I was learning were lies. This wasn't just about rotters. It was about who you chose to be when no one was left to judge you. And I knew something else now, too. I wasn't just following Tom anymore. I was choosing. And sooner or later, that choice would cost us both. We didn't talk much after that. The snow swallowed our footprints almost as fast as we made them, like the world was eager to forget what had happened. I kept seeing the man's face when the gun went off. The way his mouth opened, like he wanted to argue with reality itself. Tom walked ahead of me again, but the distance between us felt different now. Not wider, heavier. By late afternoon, we reached a low valley dotted with burned-out houses and skeletal trees, the kind of place rotters loved. Plenty of shadows, plenty of echoes. We slowed. Tom raised his hand and crouched. I followed, my muscles tight, every sound amplified in my skull. "You did good back there," he said quietly, not looking at me. I didn't answer. "Benny," he said, "you saved lives." "Some," I replied. My voice sounded older than it should have. "Not all," Tom sighed. "That's the rule you don't learn inside the fence." We moved again. That night, the fire stayed unlit. We ate cold rations and drank half-frozen water. The sky cleared, stars sharp and merciless above us. I finally asked the question that had been clawing at me since morning. "You ever been like them?" Tom didn't pretend not to understand. "Hunters," he said. I nodded. He stared into the darkness for a long time before answering. "Once," he said. "A long time ago." I waited. "I thought structure meant safety," he continued. "Thought rules could replace judgment. Thought killing was cleaner when someone else told you who deserved it." He swallowed. I was wrong. I didn't push. Some confessions didn't need details. We slept in shifts. When it was my turn to watch, I listened to the wind and thought about Nix's smile, about how easy it had been for her, how close I'd come to understanding it. Near dawn, the rotters came. No warning this time, just sound. A wet chorus rising from the valley. Tom was on his feet instantly. "Move?" We ran uphill, boots slipping, breath tearing from our lungs. The rotters surged behind us, faster than before, driven by sound and hunger and something uglier momentum. One tripped me. I hit the ground hard, air blasting from my chest. Hands grabbed my coat. Nails dug in. I screamed. Tom turned back, carving through two of them, but more poured in. Too many. I felt teeth scrape my boot. Something snapped inside me. I grabbed my blade and drove it down again and again. Not careful, not clean. The rotter collapsed, but another replaced it. Tom dragged me up by my collar. "Run!" he shouted. We broke through a line of trees and burst onto a frozen river. Ice cracked beneath our weight. Bad choice. The rotters followed. The ice split. Bodies plunged into black water, dragging others down with them. The sound was horrible moans cut short, bones snapping, ice breaking like gunfire. One rotter grabbed Tom's leg. I didn't think. I jumped back. The blade went through its skull. It fell away into the water. Tom stared at me for half a second longer than necessary. Something unspoken passed between us. We made it across. The herd didn't. When it was over, we stood on the far bank, shaking, soaked, alive. I looked down at my hands. They were covered in blood, not shaking anymore. That scared me more than anything else. Tom rested a hand on my shoulder. "This is where it changes," he said quietly. "You don't come back from moments like that." I nodded. I already knew. Because somewhere between the gunshot at the rest stop and the blade in the ice, the boy I used to be had stayed behind, and the world wasn't done collecting what it was owed. We walked for hours after the river, neither of us speaking, the sound of cracking ice still echoing in my head, long after the valley disappeared behind us. The sun climbed but offered no warmth. Everything felt muted, like the world had wrapped itself in cotton to soften the violence it kept delivering. My body moved on instinct now. Step, scan, listen. I noticed details I wouldn't have before: the way birds avoided certain trees. The smell of rot carried differently when it meant fresh dead instead of old. I hated how natural it felt. By midday, we reached the outskirts of a town that had once been something small and ordinary, a place with a name no one remembered anymore. The sign at the road was snapped in half, letters rusted and hanging like broken teeth. Tom slowed. "We skirt it," he said. "Too quiet." I looked past him down the street. Cars frozen in place, storefronts gutted, snow drifting lazily between buildings. Quiet, yes, but not empty. "I want to see," I said. Tom turned, studying me. "That's not curiosity talking." "I know." A long pause. "This place will take something from you," he said. "Every town does." "I think it already has," I replied. He exhaled through his nose. 1 block, in and out. The town smelled wrong. Not rot, something sharper. Smoke, maybe, recent. We moved between buildings, weapons low but ready. I caught movement in a shattered window and raised my blade before realizing it was just a curtain flapping. That's when we heard the crying. A child. High-pitched, panicked, unmistakably human. Tom froze. I didn't wait. The sound led us to a house at the end of the street, half collapsed but still standing. The front door hung open. Inside, the crying grew louder. Tom grabbed my arm. "This is how traps work, or how kids die," I said, and pulled free. Inside, the air was warm compared to outside. A fire burned low in a metal barrel. The crying came from the back room. I pushed the door open. A boy, maybe 8, sat huddled in a corner, clutching a knife too big for his hands. His face was streaked with dirt and tears. When he saw us, he screamed. "It's okay," I said quickly, lowering my weapon. "We're not rotters." Tom stepped in behind me, eyes scanning. "Where are your people?" he asked. The boy shook his head violently. "Gone. They took them." "Who took them?" I asked. The answer came from behind us. "Us." The click of a rifle being cocked filled the room. Tom's hand went up slowly. I turned. 3 men stood in the doorway, clean, armed, smiling in that way that never reached the eyes. Hunters. "Nice of you to bring us another one," the leader said, nodding at me. "Kid's been a problem." The boy screamed again. My heart hammered, but my mind was clear. Too clear. Tom spoke calmly. "Let the kid go. Take us instead." The man laughed. "You're old. And you," he looked at me, "you're already halfway ruined. But the boy, fresh, valuable." Something inside me snapped, not loudly, not violently, just cleanly, like ice breaking. I moved before anyone finished breathing. The blade went into the leader's throat. Blood sprayed hot across my hands. The rifle hit the floor. The room erupted. Gunshots, screams. Tom tackled 1 man, firing point blank. The 3rd ran. I chased. Outside, the snow burned my lungs as I closed the distance. He turned, panic wide in his eyes. I didn't hesitate. When it was over, I stood there, chest heaving, blade dripping red onto white. No shaking, no nausea, just silence. Tom came up behind me, looked at the body, then at me. "You didn't even blink," he said. I wiped the blade on my sleeve. He wasn't a person anymore. Tom's face hardened, not with anger, but with fear. "That's what they all say," he replied. We took the boy and left the town burning behind us. That night, as the child slept between us, Tom stayed awake longer than his shift. So did I, because now he wasn't just watching the dark anymore. He was watching me, and the ruin had finally begun. We moved before dawn. The environment was low light, dark day. Tom didn't say it out loud, but I knew why. Towns like that drew attention smoke, noise, bodies left behind. Something always followed. If not the rotters, then people worse than them. The boy's name was Eli. He barely spoke as we traveled, eyes always darting, knife clutched tight even while walking. He stayed close to me, not Tom. That scared me more than it should have. By late morning, the land changed. Trees thinned, replaced by wide frozen fields, broken by old fencing and abandoned farm equipment half buried in snow. The sky stayed heavy and gray, like it was pressing down on us. Tom stopped at the crest of a hill. "Trouble," he said. Below us, the road was blocked. Not by wreckage, but by bodies. Rotters. Dozens of them scattered and still frozen mid-collapse like statues caught in a storm. Some upright, some kneeling, some twisted in shapes that suggested they'd fallen fast. Eli whimpered softly. Tom crouched. They didn't die naturally. I scanned the area. No gunfire marks. No burn scars. Then I saw it. The heads. Clean strikes. Precise. 1 blow each. They were killed by someone trained, Tom said quietly. Or something. A sound carried across the field, then a low, rhythmic thump. Not footsteps. Running. "Down?" Tom hissed. We dropped behind a rusted tractor just as shapes emerged from the far tree line. They weren't rotters. They moved too fast, too coordinated, feral, not fully gone, not fully human. The variants. There were 5 of them, sprinting across the snow with terrifying speed, breath steaming like beasts. They didn't attack the frozen bodies. They ignored them. They were hunting. One stopped suddenly and turned its head, straight toward us. It sniffed the air. Eli gasped. That was enough. The feral let out a scream high, sharp, almost human, and the others answered. They smell us, Tom said. We run. Now. We ran. The world became sound and motion boots slipping on ice, breath tearing at my chest, Eli crying as I dragged him along. Behind us, the ferals closed the distance impossibly fast. Tom fired once, then again. One feral went down, but the rest didn't slow. Split? Tom shouted. I grabbed Eli and veered left toward an old barn barely standing at the edge of the field. Tom pulled right, drawing fire and attention. No, I shouted, but it was too late. 2 ferals chased him. 2 came after us. The barn door hung loose. I slammed into it, shoved Eli inside, and barred it with a fallen beam just as something hit the wood from the outside. The structure shook. Eli screamed. Quiet, I whispered fiercely, holding him. Quiet or we're dead. Scratching sounds followed, sniffing, low growls. Then silence, too sudden. I risked a glance through a crack in the wood. 1 feral stood just outside, head tilted, listening. Its face was wrong, not rotted, but stretched, eyes too aware. It smiled, a human smile. It raised its hand and knocked. Once, twice, mocking. My blood went cold. From somewhere far off, gunfire erupted Tom. The feral's head snapped toward the sound. It hesitated, then screeched and bolted away with impossible speed. I didn't wait. I shoved the door open and ran, Eli stumbling beside me, toward the sound of the shots. We found Tom near a ditch, bleeding from his shoulder, gasping for breath. 1 feral lay motionless nearby. The others were gone. For now. Tom looked up at me, eyes burning. They're changing, he said. Smarter, faster. I helped him up. Then we adapt. As we moved on, Eli clung tighter to my hand. That night, while Tom slept fitfully, I sat awake, staring into the dark, because the feral's smile wouldn't leave my mind, and because for the first time I wondered something I never had before. What happens when the world runs out of people to ruin, and only monsters are left to inherit it? We didn't light a fire that night. Tom's shoulder was wrapped tight, but the wound wasn't what kept him awake. It was the quiet, the kind that listens back. By morning, the storm rolled in. Snow fell sideways, thick and blinding, swallowing the road and erasing tracks ours and theirs. It should have felt like protection. Instead, it felt like a curtain being drawn. We moved slower now. Tom leaned on me more than he'd admit. Eli stayed silent, but his eyes never stopped scanning the white blur ahead. He had the look of someone who had learned too early that survival meant watching everything. Around noon, we reached the outskirts of what used to be a small town. Not ruins intact, too intact. Fences stood straight, doors were closed. No bodies, no rotters. Wrong, Tom muttered. We circled the place from a distance. Then we saw it, movement. People, not infected, not feral, alive. A group of them, maybe a dozen, moved along the main street, armed and organized. They wore layers of scavenged winter gear, faces hidden behind scarves and goggles. This wasn't a refuge. It was a territory. Eli tugged my sleeve. They take kids. The words landed hard. I knelt in front of him. How do you know that? He swallowed. Because I ran. Before I could ask more, a horn sounded from inside the town. Not loud, controlled. A signal? The people froze, then turned in unison toward the edge of town, toward us. They spotted us, Tom said. We didn't even move. A spotlight cut through the snow, sweeping the field. Then another. Run, Tom said, but not fast. We backed away, slow and deliberate, until the first warning shot cracked the air and buried itself in the snow near my feet. A voice carried through a loudspeaker. Stop where you are, hands visible. Especially the child. My grip on Eli tightened. Tom leaned close. They don't want to kill us. That's worse, I said. We raised our hands. They approached cautiously, weapons trained, eyes sharp. Up close, I saw the same thing I'd seen before, again and again in this world. Order without mercy. The leader stepped forward. A woman, hard eyes, calm voice. You're trespassing, she said, but we can make use of you. Her gaze lingered on Eli. No, I said immediately. She smiled slightly. Everyone says that at first. That's when the screaming started. Not human. From beyond the town. The Fearles. The woman's head snapped up. Her people tensed. How many? Someone shouted. Too many, another answered. Chaos followed, but not panic. Gates slammed. Positions were taken. They were prepared for this. The woman looked at us again, reassessing. Change of plans, she said. You want to live? You help us defend the wall. And the child? I asked. Her eyes flicked to Eli. If we survive, we'll talk. The Fearles hit the outer perimeter minutes later, shadows moving fast through the storm. Shapes leaping, fences, bodies slamming into reinforced barriers with inhuman strength. Gunfire lit the snow blue and white. Tom fought beside me like he always had, quiet, precise, exhausted but unyielding. Eli stayed low, covering his ears, eyes wide but watching everything. Then one Fearle made it over the wall. It landed wrong, too close. It turned toward Eli, and Eli didn't scream. He stepped forward and threw something small and metallic at its feet. The blast wasn't loud, but it was effective. The Fearle went down. Everyone stared at the boy. The woman slowly turned to face him, something unreadable in her expression. Where did you learn that? She asked. Eli looked up at me first, then back at her. From people who didn't survive, he said. The Fearles retreated as suddenly as they had come, swallowed by the storm. The town stood. Barely. The woman exhaled, then nodded once. You three, she said. You're not prisoners. Not guests either. What are we? I asked. She looked out into the snow where the Fearles had vanished. Necessary, she said. That night, behind reinforced walls and borrowed safety, I realized something terrifying. The world wasn't dividing into good people and monsters anymore. It was dividing into those who could adapt fast enough, and those who would be consumed by the next evolution. By dawn, the town no longer felt like a place, it felt like a machine. Everyone had a role. Everyone moved with purpose. No wasted words, no hesitation. Survival here wasn't hope-based. It was engineered. They called the settlement Haven Ridge. The name was a lie, but an intentional one. Names like that kept people compliant. The woman introduced herself as Mara. She wasn't the leader by title, only by gravity. People listened when she spoke, because things stayed standing when she did. Tom was taken to their medic, if you could call a man with half a pharmacy and no anesthesia a medic. Eli stayed with me, Mara insisted. He's an asset, she said plainly, whether you like that or not. I hated how easily the word fit. As the day unfolded, the truth surfaced in fragments. Haven Ridge didn't just defend against the ferals, they studied them. Patterns, migration routes, behavior changes during storms, and worse, they knew the ferals were changing. They're faster than last winter, Mara said, standing over a rough map. Smarter too, not intelligent but adaptive, like wolves learning fences. That aligned with what we'd seen on the road. The pauses, the feints, the way they tested defenses instead of charging blindly. Then came the part she didn't volunteer. I found it myself. On the far side of town, beyond a second reinforced gate, stood a smaller compound, quieter, heavier security. Inside were cages. Not ferals, children, not many, maybe 8. All different ages, all alive, all being trained. I didn't confront Mara immediately. I needed to understand. And I already did. They teach you how to survive alone, he said quietly beside me. Then they teach you how to survive when everyone else doesn't. What happens when you grow up? I asked. He shrugged. You lead or you disappear. That night, Mara finally said it out loud. The world isn't coming back, she told me. No cure. No rebuild. The old rules died with the cities. What's left is continuity. You're using kids, I said. I'm preparing them, she corrected. Adults cling to memory. Kids adapt. I thought of the blast Eli had thrown, the calm in his eyes when the feral fell. I hated that she was right. Tom confronted me later, painkillers barely dulling his voice. We can't stay. We might not get a choice, I said. As if summoned by the thought, the alarms sounded again. Not the outer perimeter, inside the town. Screams echoed human this time. Someone shouted, "Gate 3 breach from within." The truth hit all at once. One of the children had turned. Not feral, something else. Faster, stronger. Wrong. The evolution Mara feared had already arrived, and it hadn't come from the storm. It had grown up behind her walls, and it was loose. The creature didn't scream. That was the worst part. It moved through Haven Ridge with a purpose that didn't belong to the ferals. It knew doors, it knew corners, it knew fear. By the time the guards realized what they were hunting, 3 people were already dead, and not torn apart, but broken, as if something had tested how much force a human body could take before it stopped resisting. Mara gave the order no leader ever admits they've rehearsed. Contain, hide scarf, densed winter gear, and a face scarf. Gave the order no leader ever admits they've rehearsed. Contain, if containment fails, erase. Searchlights carved through the snowstorm, turning Haven Ridge into a stage of moving shadows. Gunfire echoed, sharp and controlled, but it didn't last long. Bullets slowed the thing, annoyed it, but didn't stop it. I saw it once, just once. It had been a boy, maybe 12. Now it stood wrong spine, too straight, head tilting as if listening to thoughts instead of sound. Its eyes weren't dead like the ferals. They were aware. That's when I understood the real horror. This wasn't a mutation. It was a direction. Eli was shaking beside me. Not from fear, but recognition. That's what they wanted us to be, he whispered. Mara heard him. For the first time since I met her, she didn't correct anyone. The fight ended before dawn. Not because they won, but because the creature escaped. It vanished into the storm, slipping past walls that had kept death out for years. Haven Ridge survived, barely. By morning, bodies were burned, records erased. The cages were empty, not because the children were freed, but because they were relocated, deeper, farther, safer. Or so Mara claimed. Tom was fit enough to walk. That meant it was time to leave. Staying meant becoming complicit. Leaving meant abandoning kids who might grow into monsters or leaders or something worse. At the gate, Mara stopped me. "You think you're better than this world," she said. "You're not. You just haven't been cornered long enough." She handed Eli a pack, supplies, a blade. Not goodbye, a transfer. Eli looked at me, searching for permission I didn't know how to give. "Survive," I told him. It felt like betrayal. We walked into the storm as Haven Ridge sealed itself behind us, stronger walls, harder rules, fewer illusions. On the road, Tom finally asked the question we'd both been avoiding. Did we do the right thing? I didn't answer, because somewhere out there, a thinking monster was learning how to hunt. Because somewhere behind reinforced walls, children were being shaped into weapons. Because the fields weren't the end of the world. They were just the beginning of what replaced it. And in this world, survival didn't come from kindness. It came from deciding who you were willing to become. The snow swallowed our footprints. The question stayed unanswered.